The ANC will hold a special NEC this morning with the party's former president Jacob Zuma's run-in with the law top of the agenda. Newzroom Afrika's Phakgadi is outside the headquarters of the party, that's at Luthuli House. He joins us live now. Pelane, good morning to you. Just listening or running the commentary by the former president back at that media briefing last night. He was asked repeatedly by media colleagues about whether or not he had had a conversation with some of the NEC members who were deployed to the area and indeed the province of KZN to assess the situation there. His comments were just stunning for me. He seemed very almost uninterested to meet with his fellow comrades, or perhaps I'm interpreting wrongly. You help me here. How did you read his responses around that?
Well, definitely I can tell you for sure that that particular comment seemed to rattle a lot of people, and for sure, when he asked whether it was anybody's business really that he will actually attend. But let's talk about the special NEC. Today there is that special NEC. We're expecting the African National Congress to convene today at around 10 o'clock. It is by all likelihoods that it will be virtual. So, but top of the agenda, as you put it, we could suspect that the utterances the former President Jacob Zuma yesterday that he had made will be high on that particular agenda, if not really dominate the meeting entirely. So this will be the first time that the NEC is meeting after the ruling of the Concord that really jailed the former president to 15 months for contempt of a court. So the former president claimed last night in that press briefing, Koli, that the justice system was not entirely healthy, and said him being sent to jail was equivalent to being sent to a death sentence. Very interesting. So I think the impact of the Zuma defiance on the party is what will really come to the fore as the party as the part of deliberations, and as well as what his arrest would equally mean for the party, which is currently clearly struggling with its image. But we have to take into cognizance that the meeting is a day before the hearing of the Pietermaritzburg application that Zuma himself had brought forth, Koli, asking the Pietermaritzburg High Court to interdict Police Minister Bedicele and the police from arresting him until the Constitutional Court has had his fresh application to rescind the decision really to jail him. So many analysts say if the Constitution allows the former president to challenge the outcome of the Concord in the courts of law, including the application to rescind his sentence, then the former president by all means has the right to do so, but he should not really do that at the price of delaying what is inevitable. So that is something that may be touched. But I think maybe just to throw in a little bit something that the SG matter. Did Ace Magashule contravene his suspension limitation as he addressed the masses gathered at Nkandla yesterday? I think that is a question. So also just a thought that came into mind right now as I was speaking. So a political hot potato, as our colleague Kethi Mhlatlana would say. But remaining with the story of the day, the first question that will come, what will come out of the NEC meeting today, and secondly, will Zuma attend as the NEC ex officio member? That is of course a question that we put yesterday was put to him, and he said, to what business is it to any of us?
All right, let's bring into the conversation Sbu Ngalwa, who was actually part of that media briefing at Nkandla. Sbu, the leadership of the ANC convening a special meeting to discuss matters pertaining to former President Jacob Zuma. Some South Africans, me included, may be cynical about this and say, but can the ANC NEC really be expected to provide leadership when at least one, and I'm specific here, at least one of its members stood on that podium and said, we are with you, Msholozi. I'm talking about Tony Yengen. If that is the one member who did that, how many other members within this NEC could potentially hold the same view?
Well, Toli, we've known for a fact that we have an ANC NEC that is split into two factions, and we know with the developments of the past few months that we have a faction that is dominant, that is the faction that is led by the president. And people like Tony Yengeni have always been consistent in their support for the former president. And I think the point that Pelane raises, actually, it also highlights the difficulty that the ANC finds itself in that Ace Magashule stood on that platform and spoke. But then the question is, remember his suspension says he's not meant to stand on ANC platforms. So I imagine that that was not an ANC platform. So he was there to support a friend and a comrade. So he can argue that one. But I think what will get him into trouble is not him appearing in Gandla, rather, but his utterances. When he stood on that podium, he actually called for defiance and anarchy, for a lack of actually, there's no other word, to be frank, where he says that if ANC leadership, which is the legitimate structure of the ANC, if they disband a branch, those people must remain as a branch. So basically, he's saying that if a particular structure is disbanded, they must form themselves into a parallel structure. Now, if that is not to collapse the ANC, then I don't know what will. So I do believe that the ANC NEC is at least two serious issues before them this morning. One, it is what played out in Gandla over the weekend, where we know that all of the majority of the people gathered there, they identify themselves as ANC members. So the ANC has to, in a way, take some level of responsibility. Obviously, the former president, Jacob Zuma, has decided that his freedom is paramount and that he will accept whatever means, and you'll use whatever means necessary to stay out of jail. Even that's why, even at that press conference last night, he could not even bring himself to condemn some of the illegal behavior by some of his supporters. Some there was gunfire, shooting in the air during the whole parade, if I may call it that. And we were there as journalists to witness that. He could not even bring himself to condemn such actions. And there was assault of and harassment of journalists. And so what that tells you is that for him to stay in jail, he will use whatever means necessary to stay out of jail. But what the ANC has to do is that it has to save its reputation and its brand, because the ANC brand is tied to Jacob Zuma, and the flags that were waved there were ANC flags, and the people who were out there identify themselves as ANC supporters. So that becomes a crucial thing for the ANC today. You are asking the question, Claudia, what can the ANC do? Will they do anything? Yeah. I think they've reached a point where it's either they do something or it all unravels.
So what is it then, Sbu, that they can do? We know that the ANC, as a structure or as an organization, they have disciplinary arms of the party, and those arms are exactly the reason why people like Julius Malema found themselves out of the ANC. Could the former president be skating on thin ice there? And not just him, by the way. You mentioned Ace Magashule. There's also Tony Yengeni there. Might we anticipate disciplinary action coming out of this special NEC convened specifically to talk around the Nkandla matters?
Insofar as the former president is concerned, I'm sure they'll probably want to tread carefully, because so far his defiance or his battle with the courts, for now, I don't believe it's reason for them to expel him, because he's still exploring his options. Hence now he has belatedly made that application to the Constitutional Court for the rescission of that sentence. I think someone who has almost what I would call an automatic case is an Ace Magashule, based on the very utterances that he made yesterday, calling for anarchy and chaos in a party which is supposed to be Secretary General of, regardless of the fact that he is suspended. And there is no other way to define or those comments. They were irresponsible comments by any political leader, and they feed into the mood and to the narrative that we have been hearing from the supporters of the former president, where it seems it's all or nothing. And there's this sentiment and there's this view, Xoli, that there is an attempt to collapse the rule of law and to collapse law and order in this country. And if you were in Nkandla over the weekend, I can tell you, Xoli, there was no law and order. One could easily argue that Nkandla felt like a federal state where separate rules applied, where anyone could do as they please with impunity and without any consequences.
Well, I can tell you that the police minister, Phakgadi, has been commenting around the very activities you speak about, Sbu, saying that the police had to act responsibly, and he made references twice, I believe, to Nkandla, saying that, rather to Marikana, to say that we have a precedent in this country, and that is that the issue of life is sacrosanct. Protection of life is important, and therefore police were not going to act irresponsibly. So that aside, then, Sbu, the IFP expected to speak this hour. Is this the same media briefing that was meant to be addressed by its former leader, who is now the honorary president, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, about, among other issues, the fact that some members of Amabutho decided to come to Nkandla unauthorized?
That's the anticipation, Xoli, and I guess that's also the conflation of the roles between Umntwana kaPhindangeni Nkosi Mangosuthu Buthelezi being the prime minister to the Zulu monarch, and also being the life president of Inkatha Freedom Party. But I imagine today he is wearing that hat as the traditional prime minister of the Zulu nation. But that will not stop him from delving into the politics, because there's a very thin divide between the two. But obviously there has been concern that has been expressed by the Zulu royal family at the presence of some Zulu regiments, as led by the recognized leader of Amabutho, a man by the name known as Mkiliji to most South Africans. And the reality is, Xoli, Amabutho or regiments are understood to be regiments of the king, but by nature one would expect that such a structure would remain apolitical, if I may say, and for them to be aligning themselves to a member of a political party. And we know President Zuma is very popular, but I think that is the concern from the royal household. But also you cannot take away the politics here, Xoli, because my understanding is that the leader of the very Amabutho is formerly a member of the IFP who defected to one of the other parties. So there's a lot at play here, but I mean, I do anticipate that the thrust of that press conference will be on the political developments, and also the meaning. I mean, Shenge is an elder statesman is an elder in this country, and the oldest MP in our parliament. So he normally has those nuggets of wisdom to share, and I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about the current situation in Nkandla. And also bear in mind that he is the former leader of the KwaZulu government, and he was leader of the IFP during the height of violence in this province. So he knows firsthand what happened during that violence, and I'm sure he will have a lot to share with the colleagues later on, Xoli.
That's our politics editor here at Newzroom Afrika, Sbu Ngalwa.